On November 11, 1972, Kansas City opened an airport that was supposed to change flying forever. The idea was radical. 3 circular terminals built so you could almost drive right up to your gate, 75 feet from the curb to the jet bridge. No long walks, no waiting. The most convenient airport in America. The next morning, it shared the front page of the Kansas City Star with another story, a hijacked jet bouncing across the country toward Cuba. 26 days later, the FAA ordered security screening for every passenger in America. And Kansas City's revolutionary airport, the one built around walking straight to your gate, was obsolete before it was a month old. You now had to funnel everyone through security checkpoints jammed into a building that was never designed to have them. For the next 50 years, that airport went from the most convenient in America to one of the most hated. Cramped, no bathrooms past security, nowhere to eat, gate areas so small people sat on the floor. Then, in 2023, Kansas City spent $1.5 billion to undo the mistake it made on opening day in 1972, and it built something almost nobody expected. The new terminal opened on February 28, 2023, $1.5 billion, the single largest infrastructure project in the history of Kansas City. And here's the part that matters most, because it's the reason other cities are now studying it. Not a single dollar came from local taxes. It was paid for entirely through airport revenue bonds and agreements with the airlines. The developer, a company called Edgemore, was even on the hook for cost overruns. It opened on budget and roughly 3 months ahead of schedule. What they got is genuinely one of the best airport buildings in America. 40 gates, expandable to 50, floor-to-ceiling glass, the largest all-glass boarding bridges in the country, about $34 million worth of them alone. And then the details that made it famous. A sensory room for travelers with autism, a room where nervous flyers can literally practice going through security and boarding a mock plane. All-gender restrooms with floor-to-ceiling doors, adult-sized changing tables, nursing rooms, pet relief areas indoors, wireless charging at every single seat. Around 80% of the food and shops are local Kansas City businesses, not the same 6 chains you see in every airport in the country. The recognition came fast. In J.D. Power's 2024 Airport Satisfaction Study, Kansas City ranked 3rd among all large airports in America. It won a spot on a global list of the world's most beautiful airports. It won the top award in North America for airport dining and shopping. But here's the detail I love most. When they demolished the old terminals, they crushed the concrete and used the rubble as the foundation base for the new one. And they pulled 45 mosaic medallions out of the old floor and set them into the new terrazzo. The airport everyone hated is literally buried underneath the airport everyone loves. So Kansas City won the design war completely. But a beautiful building and a great airport are not the same thing. And that's where this story gets complicated. To understand what Kansas City lost, you have to understand what it used to be. For most of the 20th century, Kansas City wasn't just an airport city, it was an airline capital. TWA, Trans World Airlines, put its headquarters here around 1930, reportedly on the advice of Charles Lindbergh himself. Howard Hughes controlled the airline from 1939 to 1966 and was a regular presence in Kansas City. This is where TWA helped pioneer pressurized cabins and the Lockheed Constellation. And then there was the overhaul base, a 1.7 million square foot maintenance complex where TWA rebuilt its entire fleet. At its peak in the 60s and 70s, it employed more than 6,000 people and was the single biggest employer in Kansas City. The airport code still carries the memory. MCI stands for Mid-Continent International, the original name, from the era when Kansas City was going to be the crossroads of American aviation. Then it all came apart. TWA moved its headquarters to New York in 1964. Corporate raider Carl Icahn took the airline private in 1988 and loaded it with debt. Flight 800 exploded off Long Island in 1996. 3 bankruptcies followed, and in 2001, American Airlines bought what was left. The last TWA flight ever, Flight 220, Kansas City to St. Louis, flew on December 1, 2001, with the airline's CEO himself in the cockpit. Former employees gathered and released red and white balloons. When TWA died, Kansas City stopped being a connecting hub. Americans slowly wound the base down and cut its last ties by 2010. And this is the thing that shapes everything about the airport today. Once you lose a hub, you almost never get it back. Kansas City became what it still is now, an airport where almost everyone flying is either starting or ending their trip here. Very few people connect. That sounds fine, but it creates a very specific vulnerability. Because when you're an origin and destination airport, your fate depends on how many people live nearby and want to fly, and on the airlines willing to serve them. And at Kansas City, one airline towers over everyone else. Southwest carries roughly 48% of all passengers at MCI, nearly half. It's been the city's hometown carrier for over 40 years. Delta is a distant second, around 17%, American around 15%, United around 10%. That Southwest dominance is a strength, right up until it isn't. Watch what happened. In 2024, the new terminal helped drive Kansas City to an all-time record, over 12.1 million passengers, the busiest year in the airport's entire history, finally beating a record that had stood since the year 2000. Then, in 2025, traffic fell 5.5%, down to about 11.5 million. The best new airport in America got fewer passengers in its second full year than its first. Why? Because Southwest, in the middle of its own national restructuring under pressure from an activist investor, trimmed capacity. When your airport is half Southwest and Southwest pulls back, there's no one to fill the gap. That's the whole vulnerability in one number. A gorgeous, award-winning $1.5 billion building can't control whether its dominant airline decides to fly less. Now, Southwest is also the source of the airport's growth. In 2026, it launched Kansas City's first-ever Southwest International route to Punta Cana. It's adding daily Boston service, plus weekend flights to Savannah and Norfolk, with more coming in the fall. So Southwest giveth and Southwest taketh, and Kansas City doesn't get a vote. There's one number that captures Kansas City's ceiling better than any other: 0. That's how many non-stop flights leave Kansas City for Europe, or Asia, or anywhere across an ocean. For a metro of nearly 2 million people with a brand new world-class terminal, that's a striking gap, and Kansas City has tried to close it. In 2018, it landed Icelandair, a seasonal non-stop to Reykjavik, the airport's first ever transatlantic route. To get it, Kansas City waived the airline's landing fees for 2 years and paid it $250,000 a year in marketing money. It lasted 2 seasons. Icelandair pulled out in 2019, and it hasn't come back. The only international flights from Kansas City today go to leisure spots: Cancun, Los Cabos, Montego Bay, Punta Cana. Sunshine, not business capitals. And here's the salt in the wound. Just up the road, Kansas City's old rival St. Louis just landed British Airways, a non-stop to London Heathrow 4 times a week on a Boeing 787 starting in 2026. St. Louis's first link to the UK in more than 20 years. The St. Louis airport director practically celebrated it as revenge. Kansas City is still waiting for its own. But there's a reason to think the timing might finally be shifting, and it has nothing to do with airlines. A few things are happening around Kansas City at the same time. In July 2025, Panasonic opened a $4 billion electric vehicle battery plant just outside the city, the largest economic development project in the history of the state of Kansas. When fully running, it's projected to employ up to 4,000 people. And in the summer of 2026, Kansas City becomes something it has never been: a World Cup city. 6 matches at Arrowhead Stadium, including a quarterfinal. Hundreds of thousands of international visitors, many of whom will need to fly in, to an airport with no transatlantic flights. That's the case Kansas City is quietly making to the airlines right now. A growing metro, a world-class terminal, A global sporting event, a $4 billion battery plant pulling in engineers and executives, all the ingredients of a city that could, finally, justify a flight across the Atlantic. So here's the honest verdict. Kansas City did not build America's busiest airport. It didn't build a hub. It can't. That ship sailed when TWA died. It's still roughly the 40th busiest airport in the country, and it still lives or dies by Southwest's schedule. What it built is the best airport experience in America for a city its size, and quietly turned the most hated airport in the country into one of the most loved, without spending a dollar of local tax money to do it. Whether that becomes something bigger depends on three things. Watch whether Southwest keeps growing here or keeps trimming. Watch whether Panasonic actually delivers those 4,000 jobs or whether it stalls like so many battery plants have. And watch whether the World Cup finally gives some airline a reason to fly Kansas City to Europe. Because if it doesn't happen now, with all of this lined up, it may never happen at all. 50 years ago, Kansas City built an airport that was obsolete in a month. This time, it built one that's ready. The only question left is whether the rest of the world shows up to use it.